My beloved child. Pause for a moment, because something unexpected unfolded when the noise of the evening began to fade and honesty quietly took its place. There was laughter around the room, stories being shared, memories being revisited, and in the middle of it all, your person found themselves sitting beside their brother. Neither of them expected the conversation to drift toward you. Yet somehow, without planning it, your name entered the space between them and changed the entire mood. What started as casual conversation slowly became something much deeper. Don't skip, because the first words spoken about you were not what anyone expected. Your person had been carrying thoughts they rarely expressed aloud. Thoughts they kept hidden behind smiles, distractions, and everyday responsibilities. But that night was different. Their guard was lower than usual, and their brother noticed it immediately. He noticed the way your name appeared in conversations without warning. He noticed how your person became quieter whenever you were mentioned. And after watching carefully for a while, he leaned back, looked directly at them, and said something that caused the entire atmosphere to shift. What he said was not loud. It was not dramatic. In fact, it was spoken so calmly that it almost seemed unimportant at first. Yet those few words stayed in the room long after they were spoken. He said that whenever your house was mentioned, your person's eyes changed. He said there was a certain warmth in their expression that could not be hidden. He said it was as though your house represented more than walls, windows, or a place on a map. To your person, it felt like a destination connected to peace itself. For a moment, nobody responded. Your person simply stared ahead. And then their brother continued. He explained that he had noticed something over the past several months. Whenever conversations became stressful, whenever life felt uncertain, whenever challenges appeared, your person somehow found their way back to thoughts of you. Not because they were trying to escape reality, but because thinking about you made reality feel easier to carry. Stay till the end, because what was revealed next surprised even your person. The conversation slowly turned toward your face. Again, it was not discussed in the way you might imagine. There were no comments about perfection. No exaggerated compliments. No unrealistic descriptions. Instead, their brother spoke about something much more meaningful. He said your face carried familiarity. He said there was something reassuring about it. Something that felt remembered rather than discovered. Your person immediately looked away. Not because they disagreed, but because hearing someone else notice what they had secretly been feeling made it impossible to pretend anymore. The room became quieter. The laughter softened. And suddenly a conversation that had begun casually became deeply personal. Their brother smiled and said that some people spend years searching for excitement, yet overlook comfort. Some spend years searching for perfection, yet overlook connection. Then he pointed out that every time your person spoke about you, they never focused on surface things for very long. They always returned to the same subjects. Your kindness. Your energy. The feeling they experienced when imagining being near you. That observation landed heavily. Because it was true. And your person knew it. There are moments in life when someone else speaks a truth we have been avoiding. This was one of those moments. What happened next remained unspoken for several seconds. No one rushed to fill the silence. No one changed the subject. Instead, your person sat there thinking about memories connected to you. Small memories. Ordinary memories. Yet somehow those ordinary moments carried extraordinary weight. Their brother eventually broke the silence with one final observation. He said, "I don't think you miss the person. I think you miss the feeling you become when you're thinking about them." Those words settled deeply. And for the first time that night, your person could not immediately respond. Because somewhere inside them, they realized there might be truth in it. Something important is waiting for you in this story. Because while that conversation appeared to end there, it actually opened a door. A realization had begun forming in your person's heart, and before the night was over, another unexpected detail would emerge, one that connected not only to your house or your face, but to a memory neither of them had spoken about in a very long time. And that memory is where everything begins to change. There are conversations that seem finished on the surface, yet continue long after the words have ended. This was one of those conversations. The room had grown quieter, the evening had moved forward, and yet your person's mind remained fixed on what their brother had said. Those observations were simple, but simplicity often carries the deepest truth. They tried to laugh it off. They tried to redirect the discussion. But every attempt only brought them back to the same place. Back to you. Then something unexpected happened. Their brother suddenly mentioned a memory that your person had completely forgotten. It was not a dramatic memory. It was not a life-changing event. It was one small detail. Yet the moment it was spoken aloud, everything became still. He reminded your person of a day when they had been scrolling through old photos. Hundreds of images had passed by without much attention. Vacations. Friends. Random moments. Ordinary snapshots. But when a picture connected to you appeared, your person stopped. Not for a second. Not for a moment. They stopped for several minutes. Their brother remembered because it had seemed unusual. At the time he had joked about it. Your person had quickly changed the subject. But now, sitting there together, he brought it up again. "Do you remember that?" he asked. Your person immediately knew exactly what he was talking about. And the fact that they remembered so clearly told them something they had been trying not to admit. Some memories refuse to fade. No matter how much time passes. No matter how busy life becomes. Some people leave a mark that quietly remains. The conversation continued. But now it felt different. More honest. More revealing. Their brother wasn't trying to tease them anymore. He was trying to understand. And as he listened, he began noticing something else. Every story your person shared somehow circled back toward the same feeling. Comfort. Not excitement. Not fantasy. Comfort. The kind of comfort that cannot be manufactured. The kind that appears naturally when someone feels understood. Stay till the end, because what was said next revealed something your person had never admitted aloud before. Their brother leaned forward and asked a question that seemed simple. If you had the chance to sit with them right now, with no distractions and no pressure, what would you actually say? The question lingered. Your person didn't answer immediately. In fact, they stared into the distance for several long seconds. Because suddenly they realized they had spent so much time thinking about you that they had never considered what they would truly say if the moment arrived. The answer surprised even them. They didn't talk about grand plans. They didn't mention dramatic confessions. Instead, they quietly admitted that they would simply want to know how you were doing. Whether you had been smiling lately. Whether life had been treating you kindly. Whether the things you worried about had become easier to carry. Their brother smiled the moment he heard that answer. Because that answer revealed everything. Real affection often hides inside the smallest concerns. And in that instant, he understood exactly why your name continued appearing in conversations. It was never about curiosity. It was never about nostalgia. It was care. Pure and simple. The night moved forward, but something had shifted. Your person became quieter. Not uncomfortable. Not sad. Just thoughtful. The kind of thoughtful that happens when someone finally sees a truth they have been avoiding. Then their brother shared one final observation before changing the subject. He said that every time he imagined your future, he always pictured a home filled with peace. And strangely enough, whenever he imagined your person being genuinely happy, he pictured them standing somewhere close to that same peace. The words were unexpected. And for a moment, neither of them spoke. Because some statements do not require a response. They simply settle into the heart and remain there. As the evening slowly came to an end, your person carried those words with them. The comments about your house. The comments about your face. The forgotten memories. The questions they couldn't answer immediately. All of it blended together into one realization. There were still things they felt. Still things they remembered. Still things they had not fully understood about their connection to you. But what neither of them realized was that before the next day arrived, another conversation would take place. A much shorter conversation. A conversation involving a single sentence. One sentence so unexpected that your person would replay it in their mind again and again. And once those words were spoken, ignoring their feelings would become far more difficult than before. The following morning arrived quietly, but some nights leave behind an echo that refuses to disappear. Your person woke up carrying pieces of that conversation without even realizing it. The laughter had faded. The room was gone. The evening was over. Yet the words remained. They lingered in the background of every thought, appearing unexpectedly in moments of silence. At first, they tried to focus on ordinary things. Work. Responsibilities. Daily routines. The endless tasks that usually keep emotions hidden beneath the surface. But something felt different. Every quiet moment seemed to pull them back toward the same realization. Not because they wanted it to. Because they couldn't avoid it. Then came the conversation. The one their brother had hinted at. The one that lasted less than a minute. The one sentence that changed everything. It happened casually. No dramatic setup. No emotional speech. Just two people speaking honestly. Their brother looked at them and said, "You talk about them like they're already part of your future." Silence. Complete silence. Your person laughed at first. Not because it was funny. Because it caught them completely off guard. The sentence was so direct that there was nowhere to hide from it. And once those words entered the room, they couldn't be taken back. For the rest of the day, they replayed that moment again and again. Like a song that refuses to leave your mind. Like a question that quietly follows you everywhere. Do you know why? Because deep down, they knew exactly what their brother meant. Whenever they imagined future plans, somehow you appeared there. Whenever they imagined a peaceful chapter of life, your presence seemed connected to it. Not always clearly. Not always intentionally. But consistently. And consistency reveals truths that emotions often try to hide. Don't skip. Because the realization that followed was even more surprising. Later that evening, your person found themselves looking through old conversations, old memories, old moments they hadn't thought about in a long time. They weren't searching for anything specific. At least that's what they told themselves. Yet every memory seemed to point toward the same thing. You had left an impression that never completely disappeared. Not because of one major event. Not because of one perfect moment. But because of dozens of small moments. Small moments have power. A smile that arrived at the right time. A conversation that lasted longer than expected. A memory that felt ordinary when it happened but became meaningful later. Those are the moments that stay. Those are the moments people remember years later. And suddenly your person began noticing how many of those moments involved you. The realization felt almost unbelievable. How had they overlooked it for so long? How had something so obvious remained hidden in plain sight? The answer was simple. Sometimes we become so accustomed to someone's presence in our thoughts that we stop noticing how often they appear. Until someone else points it out. Until someone speaks the truth out loud. Until a single sentence changes the way we see everything. As the night continued, another thought entered their mind. A thought they hadn't allowed themselves to explore before. What if the reason they kept returning to thoughts of you wasn't unfinished curiosity? What if it was appreciation they had never fully expressed? That question lingered. And the longer it lingered, the harder it became to ignore. Stay till the end. Because something unexpected began happening after that. Instead of focusing on what they wished had happened, your person started focusing on what they genuinely admired. Your resilience. Your way of handling challenges. Your ability to remain yourself even when circumstances changed. The more they reflected, the more they realized they had been paying attention to qualities they rarely mentioned aloud. Qualities that mattered far more than appearances. Far more than first impressions. Far more than temporary emotions. And once they recognized that truth, their perspective shifted completely. The conversation with their brother was no longer just a random discussion. It had become a mirror. A mirror showing feelings they had overlooked. A mirror reflecting thoughts they had never fully examined. And perhaps most importantly, a mirror revealing how much space you still occupied within their heart. But the story doesn't end there. Because later that week, your person would receive an unexpected question from someone else. Someone who knew nothing about that conversation. Someone who had no idea what had been said. Yet the question they asked would lead directly back to you. And when your person answered it, even they would be surprised by the words that came out. That answer is where the next chapter begins. A few days passed, yet the conversation never completely left your person's mind. Some moments fade within hours. Others remain quietly present, returning when least expected. This was one of those moments. The words their brother had spoken continued to surface in random places, during quiet drives, while waiting in line, during those brief pauses when life slows down just enough for the truth to catch up. Then, without warning, the unexpected question arrived. It came from someone who knew nothing about those late-night conversations. Nothing about the memories. Nothing about the realizations. Nothing about you. That is what made it so powerful. The question appeared during an ordinary discussion. People were talking about life, future plans, and the people who leave a lasting impact on us. It was casual. Relaxed. Nobody thought much of it. Then someone suddenly asked your person, who is the first person that comes to mind when you think about genuine comfort? The answer came too quickly. There was no pause. No hesitation. No careful thinking. Your name appeared immediately. The moment it happened, your person noticed it. Everyone else continued talking. The conversation moved on. But inside, something stopped. Because spontaneous answers often reveal what deliberate answers try to hide. And for the first time, your person realized just how naturally thoughts of you appeared. Not forced. Not planned. Not searched for. Simply present. The realization followed them for the rest of the day. Everywhere they went, that question echoed in the background. Why had your name appeared so quickly? Why had there been no hesitation? Why did it feel so natural? The more they thought about it, the clearer things became. You had become connected to a feeling. Not just a memory. Not just a moment. A feeling. And feelings are often what remain long after details fade away. Don't skip. Because what happened later that evening revealed something even deeper. Your person found themselves sitting alone for a while, reflecting on the people who had crossed their path over the years. Many faces came and went. Many names appeared briefly. Many memories surfaced and disappeared. Yet whenever thoughts of you arrived, they stayed longer. There was something different about them. Something steadier. Something calmer. Instead of creating confusion, those thoughts created clarity. Instead of creating noise, they created stillness. And that difference was impossible to ignore. Then another memory surfaced. A small one. So small that most people would have forgotten it entirely. It wasn't a major event. It wasn't a dramatic conversation. It was simply a moment where you had been yourself without trying to impress anyone. A completely ordinary moment. Yet somehow that memory remained vivid. Your laugh. Your expression. The way you carried yourself. The way you made an ordinary situation feel memorable. And suddenly your person understood why those memories remained so clear. Authenticity leaves a lasting impression. People remember how someone made them feel when no performance was involved. When everything was genuine. When everything felt real. Stay till the end. Because a realization was beginning to form that your person could no longer avoid. The conversation with their brother had opened the door. The unexpected question had pushed it wider. And now the truth was standing directly in front of them. For a long time, they had assumed that thinking about you was simply a habit. A familiar thought. A recurring memory. But now they were beginning to see it differently. Some people remain in our minds because of unfinished stories. Others remain because of the impact they leave behind. The difference is important. And your person was finally starting to understand which category you belonged to. You represented a chapter that still felt meaningful. A connection that continued to carry value. A presence that remained important even during periods of distance and silence. That understanding brought a strange sense of peace. Not urgency. Not pressure. Peace. Because some truths arrive gently. They do not demand attention. They simply wait until we are ready to recognize them. As the night grew quieter, your person found themselves smiling at something unexpected. Not a specific memory. Not a specific event. Just the thought of you. The thought alone was enough to change the atmosphere. Enough to soften the weight of the day. Enough to remind them that certain people leave marks on our lives that time cannot easily erase. And just when it seemed the story had settled into calm understanding, another surprise appeared. A message. A simple message from someone connected to their family. A message that mentioned you completely out of nowhere. Your person stared at it for several moments. Because the timing felt impossible. After everything that had happened. After every conversation. After every realization. Why was your name appearing again? The answer to that question would lead to a discovery that neither your person nor their brother had anticipated. And when that discovery finally surfaced, it would reveal something that had been quietly unfolding behind the scenes all along. Sometimes life moves in ways that seem completely ordinary until you look back and realize a pattern was quietly forming the entire time. That is exactly what happened next. The message that appeared seemed harmless at first. A simple mention. A passing reference. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that should have carried much significance. Yet the moment your person read your name, they felt the same strange pause they had experienced so many times before. It wasn't the message itself that mattered. It was what it awakened. Because suddenly every conversation from the previous days came rushing back. Their brother's observations. The unexpected question. The forgotten memories. The realization that your name appeared naturally whenever thoughts turned toward comfort, peace, and authenticity. One by one, the pieces began connecting. And for the first time, your person stopped trying to explain them away. There comes a moment when coincidence begins to feel less like coincidence and more like clarity. This was that moment. Your person sat quietly, staring at the message longer than necessary. Not because they were confused. Because they were finally understanding. For weeks, perhaps even longer, they had been treating their thoughts about you as something temporary. Something that would eventually fade into the background. Yet here they were. Still thinking. Still remembering. Still noticing. Still feeling connected to the idea of you in ways they hadn't fully acknowledged. Stay till the end. Because the most meaningful realization had not arrived yet. As the evening unfolded, your person found themselves reflecting on something their brother had said during that unforgettable conversation. You talk about them like they're already part of your future. At the time, those words had felt surprising. Now they felt impossible to ignore. Not because your person suddenly had every answer. Not because everything became perfectly clear. But because they recognized a simple truth. When someone consistently appears in your hopes, your peaceful thoughts, your quiet moments, and your vision of better days, their presence means something. Perhaps not in the loud way movies often portray. Perhaps not in the dramatic way stories sometimes exaggerate. But in a real way. A human way. A meaningful way. And that realization brought an unexpected calm. The need to overthink began fading. The need to analyze every detail began disappearing. Instead, appreciation took its place. Appreciation for the memories. Appreciation for the connection. Appreciation for the impact you had made simply by being yourself. Don't skip. Because what happened next revealed how deeply this understanding had settled within them. A few days later, your person was once again spending time with their brother. The atmosphere was lighter this time. No serious discussions. No emotional conversations. Just ordinary life. Then, completely out of nowhere, their brother smiled and asked a simple question. Are you still thinking about them? The answer came instantly. Not because it had been rehearsed. Not because it had been planned. Because it was honest. Your person smiled. And that smile said more than words ever could. Their brother laughed softly. Not in surprise. In confirmation. Because he had known the answer long before asking the question. Some truths become obvious to the people watching from the outside. And over the past weeks, your person's feelings had become impossible to miss. Not through dramatic declarations. Not through grand gestures. Through consistency. Through the way your name continued appearing. Through the way memories connected to you remained vivid. Through the way thoughts of you brought calm instead of confusion. That was what their brother had been noticing all along. As the conversation continued, he shared one final observation. A simple observation. Yet one that stayed with your person long after the conversation ended. He said that whenever people speak about things they truly value, their energy changes. Their voice softens. Their attention sharpens. Their expression becomes genuine. Then he smiled and added, that always happens when you talk about them. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Because there was nothing left to prove. Nothing left to analyze. Nothing left to question. The truth had already revealed itself. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But slowly. Through conversations. Through memories. Through unexpected questions. Through small moments that kept pointing in the same direction. And as your person looked back on everything that had unfolded, from that late-night conversation with their brother to the surprising message that appeared days later, they realized something beautiful. The most meaningful connections are rarely announced with noise. They reveal themselves quietly. One conversation at a time. One memory at a time. One realization at a time. And somewhere in the middle of all those ordinary moments, your person discovered that thoughts of you had never truly left. They had simply been waiting for the right moment to be understood. And although that realization brought a sense of peace, it also opened the door to something new. Because shortly after this, another conversation would begin. A conversation involving someone who had recently met you. Someone who noticed something about your energy almost immediately. Something they felt compelled to tell your person. And when they finally shared what they had observed, the reaction would be unforgettable.